If you're using the forebrain, you're strengthening the forebrain and adding new pathways and taking command of your life. Today, you may have heard the term neuroplasticity, and most likely you've heard that the brain is adaptable and is constantly moving and changing and adapting to the stimuli that it's facing. But the question I'm going to start with today is the brain evolving and continuing to evolve as we live? The answer is yes. So if you have something to write with and write on, you may want to take some notes. Every time you perceive with one of your senses or multiple of your senses some specific event or some experience, your senses are taking in the information. They're through receptors. They're going into the spinal cord. They're going up the spinal cord or the brain stem, depending on the sense, and goes into the thalamus. The information passes through the thalamus and the second order neurons and then goes up into the cortex, and you become consciously aware. What you receive in the receptors and what goes to the cortex are not always the same. We change through association stored in our subconscious mind our interpretation of our reality. Reality is what our senses are perceiving or receiving. So reception and perception aren't always the same. What we receive through our senses and what we perceive in our conscious awareness is distorted. When it goes to the thalamus, which is a relay station up into the conscious awareness, we can alter what we perceive. We filter out much of what's there, and we only allow certain information to go up into the conscious awareness. Much of it stays on the unconscious level. If what we perceive and what goes into the conscious level is balanced, then the information relays into the frontal cortex, the advanced part of the brain, the medial prefrontal cortex, and responds objectively because you have a balanced orientation. And so it responds objectively. Objectivity means neutral, and it just responds with as accurate as information as possible. But if you are perceiving something, taking reception and altering it and imbalancing it, that means the brain is assuming that it represents either prey or predator, something to seek, something to avoid, an impulse to seek, an instinct to avoid. Now, the second it automatically has an imbalanced ratio perception, the relay station from the thalamus goes over into the subcortical area of the brain, the amygdala and the hippocampus, and the amygdala assigns a valency to it, a positive or negative charge to it, and decides whether it's prey or predator, and initiates a motor response and a cerebellar response to make sure that you seek or avoid it or chase it or run from it. So if you have an imbalanced response, an imbalanced perspective or perception, the subcortical area that runs the brain, the desire center, the desire to seek that which is prey and to a desire to avoid that which is predator, and that area is subjectively biased, and all of our prejudices, all of our distortions and discriminations and our judgments are coming from that. So the second we do that, we use the brain of the subcortical area instead of the forebrain. Whatever we use, the oligodendrocytes, which are glial cells inside the brain, myelinate that pathway, and we strengthen that pathway and grow that pathway, and it gets stronger and stronger and stronger, makes a habit out of it. So if we use our subcortical area, we are more in survival. If we are using our executive center and our forebrain, we're in thrival, not survival. And depending on which one you use will determine what the brain does. If you're in survival, it stops the development of the forebrain. If it's in thrival, it calms down and governs the subcortical area of the brain. So we evolve when we're actually centered in balance. We basically survive when we're in imbalanced states. So if we keep having perceptions that are imbalanced and bias and misinformation about our reality, then we keep kind of stagnating in animal reactions of avoid and seek. And we don't really evolve with reason and objectivity and keep advancing. See, anything that we judge, we react to. Anything that we love, we govern, you might say. We're an automaton reacting to misperceptions, and we're basically an individual that's undivided, that's balanced when we function from a balanced perspective of mind. Now, this is exactly why I teach the breakthrough experience. In the seminar that I teach, the breakthrough experience, I teach people how to identify their highest values. Because when you're living aligned and congruent with your highest values, you're more objective, and you activate the glucose in the forebrain and oxygen in the forebrain, and you activate the medial prefrontal cortex, and you advance the brain forward. And you have strategic planning, and you have a vision, and you have strategic executive function, and you end up having execution of the plans, and you function from a governed position without reaction. You're in thrival, not survival. When you're living lower values, you automatically go into the amygdala. The unfulfillment puts you in the amygdala, and you're more impulsive and instinctual. And you're basically running and seeking and avoiding. You're searching for that which is unobtainable and trying to avoid that which is unavoidable. Because the truth is, you need prey and predator to maximally grow. If you get prey without predator, you get fat and overeat and everything else and lose fitness. If you get predator without prey, you get emaciated and starved and you lose fitness. But if you put the two together and keep them balanced and objective, you maximize growth and development, and you advance the brain. The distinctions between us and all the other species is our telencephalon, our forebrain, is most developed and has the higher percentage of development. So if we keep using our forebrain, we keep evolving. If we don't, and we just keep reacting with imbalanced perspectives, we stay stagnant. We develop an impulse and instinct center, which is no different than the animals, but we don't develop the capacities that distinguish us from the animals. The path of meaning, and the path of reason, the path of self-governance, the path of self-mastery. The breakthrough experience also discusses the Demartini method. And the Demartini method is designed to assist people in taking subconsciously stored imbalanced ratios of perception and methodically balancing them so we can awaken and strengthen and develop the forebrain and evolve us further and expand our mastery. If we're living in our forebrain, we're in the path of mastery of destiny. We're living in our subcortical area, we're in the victim of history. So I tell people that if you use the Demartini method and apply it and ask the questions and hold yourself accountable, you make the unconscious conscious to make you fully conscious. And then you end up seeing both sides of things, have a balanced orientation, wake up the thriving centers in the forebrain instead of the surviving centers in the subcortical region of the brain. So the second we are basically asking quality questions that bring balance to our mind, which is what our intuition is trying to get us to do constantly, and ask those formally and balance our perception by using the method, we automatically develop that part of the brain. Every time we answer a question, let's say that we're infatuated with somebody, highly infatuated, and we're conscious of the upsides, unconscious of the downsides. If we ask a question, what are the upsides? What are the benefits? And answer that and become conscious of the benefits until the benefits and the drawbacks are balanced, we stop the infatuation, we feel appreciation, love for the individual. We now move the development in the brain into the forebrain out of the subcortical amygdala. And instead of reacting and having the outside world run us and occupy space and time in our mind, we now run ourselves. We're governing of ourselves. And we now are moving forward, and we're letting the voice and the vision on the inside be more loud and more powerful than the reactions from the outside. It's the same thing if we resent somebody. If we go and ask, we're conscious of the downside, unconscious of the upside. If we ask a question in the Demartini method, what are the benefits of that behavior that we're judging? And balancing out, see the benefits equal the drawbacks. Again, we're back into the executive function. And the executive function, literally, the moment we're back into balance, within 200 milliseconds or whatever, spines are developing on the dendrites of the nerves and literally are remodeling the brain. The brain is neuroplastic and it's remodeling itself based on what we're using. So if we're using our forebrain with a balanced objective view, we develop that area, open up new networks, new pathways, new connections, and we master our lives, become more adept in not reacting, but acting with foresight. Instead, if we keep things imbalanced and keep letting our misperceptions run us, our amygdala keeps running our life, we're into our subjective bias, and we're basically holding ourselves back with reactions. And now we neuroplastically are strengthening the pathway of the amygdala and becoming more animal-like. And therefore, we're run from the external world, victims of history, as I call it. So the key is the quality of your life is based on the quality of the questions you ask. That's why I tell people to come to the breakthrough experience to ask, first of all, to determine what your values are so you can live by priority. And second, application of that is doing the Demartini method so you can take whatever is happening and find out how it's either helping or hindering your highest values and bring yourself back into balance to neutralize the perceptions so the world on the outside is not running you. If you liberate yourself from those things that you're in bondage to, because anything you infatuate with or resent occupies space and time in your mind and you have a bondage to it, as the Buddha says, that which you are attached to, which are infatuation, resentments, runs your life. If you balance it, you're liberated from that. You have a freedom from that. You're not reactive, you're proactive, and you're back on track with your priorities again. So I teach people in the breakthrough experience how to ask questions that liberate yourself from those emotional reactions that are animalistic, that keep you in the subcortical area of the brain and trap you with impulses and instincts, which are called distractions. That's why I tell people, if you don't fill your day with high priority actions that inspire you from within, your day fills up with low priority distractions, impulses and instincts that distract you from without. One is empowering you and leading you to mastery. The other one is disempowering you, leading to misery. It's totally up to you. That's why I tell people the brain is evolving and the brain is letting you know where you're functioning. You can't lie to the brain. The brain is letting you know by the development. There's oligodendrocytes, which are glial cells there that myelinate new pathways the second you use them. So if you're using the forebrain, you're strengthening the forebrain and adding new pathways and taking command of your life. And like Michael Phelps, when he was basically visualizing himself to go and run, to swim for his gold medals, he saw and rehearsed in his mind's eye exactly how he wanted it to be. He didn't let distractions interfere with that. And of course, he got 28 gold medals. The same thing in your life. If you define clearly what it is that's highest on your priority, what's deeply meaningful to you, and focus on that, and then see that no matter what happens, how is it on the way to get there? If you're infatuated, what's the downside? If you're resenting it, what's the upside? To bring it back into balance, because when you're pursuing something that's deeply meaningful, the mean is the mean between these pairs of opposites, these distractions. The second you do that, you move in the direction of what it is that your innermost dominant thought is. And your innermost dominant thought is an expression of what you value most, and it determines the pathway and destiny. But if you get distracted, then those occupy space and time in your mind, and you let the outside world dictate your destiny. So that's why I tell people your brain is evolving. And is it evolving? Yes. The answer is yes. And are you able to direct that evolution? Yes. If you prioritize your life, you direct it into the forebrain. If you don't, it keeps running in the hindbrain, in the lower reactions, and the subcortical area of the brain. And if you're running from hindsight, not foresight, you're living by the lowest heuristic. You're living by trial and error, which is less effective than actually having foresight, using your creative imagination to see in your mind's eye the outcome and then take the actions that lead to the result. So that's why I tell people in the breakthrough experience, if you want to master your life, let's prioritize our day. That's one of the reasons in the breakthrough, I help you identify what your values are, prioritize your life, get dedicated to what's highest in priority, delegate what's lowest, do the Demartini method on dissolving all the emotional baggage that's stored in the subconscious mind that's causing you to emotionally react, all of your elations and depressions and all your impulses and instincts, infatuation, resentments, and feelings of pride and shame, all the distractions that keep you from being magnificent and authentic and centered. All of those create symptoms in your life to try to get you back to what's authentic. So if you go and master your life that way and follow the principles I teach in the breakthrough experience, your life moves in the trajectory just like a gold medal, and you start mastering your life. That's why your brain is doing everything it can, and the forebrain is doing everything it can to help you fulfill what's deeply meaningful to you. And the lower subcortical areas of the brain are there for survival. If you want to live in survival, it takes no effort. If you want to live and thrive, it takes some mastery. And that's why I teach people in the breakthrough experience how to determine their values, how to live by a priority, how to use the Demartini method, how to dissolve the distractions, how to stay focused on what's important, how to transform no matter what's happened in your life, how is it turned into something on the way, not in the way, and be able to prioritize your perceptions and your actions in such a way that you're living out the way you would love your life to be. I learned a long time ago how important it is to prioritize and how important this method is, the Demartini method I teach in the breakthrough experience, to help people transform their lives. So they're not weighing themselves down with baggage, they're lightening themselves with fuel. So I just want to share a few moments with you on that. And just know that the brain is evolving. You can evolve it. You can prioritize. You can use the Demartini method. That's why I tell people come to the Breakthrough Experience. It's gold mine. The information you'll get there is going to give you a tool and a skill that people who've never been to the program will not have. And I assure you it's something novel, and it's something that's original, and something that can make a difference in your life. So come and learn that. Learn that tool, both those tools, and let's go and master a life. Be a master of destiny, not a victim of history.